Hi guys, how you all doing? Welcome to my daily brief for today, September 5th, 2020. So today I'm going to be talking about GDP. I'm sure you've all heard that word before. It's an acronym for Gross Domestic Product. So last week there were GDP numbers that came out, and I think it is important that you all know how it affects you. It's pretty important. So, the National Bureau of Statistics (NBS), that's the department in the government that typically pushes out macroeconomic numbers, told us last week that the GDP numbers were minus 6.1%. That means Nigeria's GDP growth rate contracted by 6.1%. So it didn't grow. Rather than grow, it went back 6.1%. And this compares to, I think, 1.8% in the first quarter of 2020. So what does this all mean, really, like minus 6.1%? Well, let's start by defining explaining what GDP really means. So think about it this way. If you and I, everybody, we come together and say, how much have we all produced in a particular period? So I produce 100 tubers of yam, what X? I produce X number of dresses, what X? I produce X number of shoes, what X? I have this number of inventory, what X. So every single thing we aggregate it together. That is how much goods and services that we have all produced. So the government takes that number and compares it to the same period, say a year ago. If there is a growth, so let's assume everything that we all produce was, for sake of argument, 1 million naira last year, and then it is 1.2 million naira same period this year, last year. That means we've grown by 20%. So that's GDP growth rate. So the government uses that number to know how well an economy is growing. So if you have a GDP number that is fast, like 6, 7, 8%, then it means that economic growth is rapid. Think about it. If today total number of inventory I have is 1 million, and then next year it's gone to 1.5 million, and then the year after it's gone to 1.8 million, it means I'm growing. It means my business is expanding. If it's happening to you too, and to your brother, and to your sister, and to your friend, and your friend's friend, and your friend's friend, then it means we're all growing. And that is what government wants to see. In developing economies, you want to see GDP growth rate at like numbers close to 8, 9, 10, 12%. Because when the economy is growing that fast, then it means that you can quickly get people out of poverty, and then you can quickly create jobs. That's basically how it works. And that's how China was able to grow rapidly, because China has always had a GDP growth rate of 12, 13%, 14%. They've always been like double digits. India is another country that is like China now. So they are growing rapidly at that fast pace. Now, but what about their country, Nigeria? Nigeria hasn't really grown that fast. I think the highest I've ever seen Nigeria grow in recent times, at least since democracy, it's probably about 7% or something like that. And that was, if I'm not mistaken, during Yar'Adua's time or early days of Jonathan. That's when we were growing that fast. But since the recession hit, and since oil price crashed in 2014, 15, and the recession hit in 2016, we've been seeing tepid GDP growth rate. When you say tepid, it means like 1 point something percent, 2 point something percent. Not enough to lift people out of poverty. So that is why you see things are so hard. There are a lot of people that are unemployed, they don't have jobs, just because we're not growing fast enough. Indeed, in 2016, we fell into a recession, if you all remember, when we said we're all in a recession, because we had 2 consecutive quarters of contraction. So now we've had 1 quarter of contraction in June, which is minus 6.1%. If there is another minus by the end of September, that's by the end of this month, which will be July, August, September quarter, then 2 minuses or 2 negatives means we are officially in a recession. A lot of people think that we're in a recession already, and I think I'm one of them. I believe we're in a recession. So that is GDP numbers for last week. But what does this mean to you, and like how does it affect you? Like I said, if your country is not growing well, it means that we can't create enough jobs. There's not purchasing power of Nigerians is low, so people can't really buy much. Your businesses can't grow that fast as you want, because if the economy around you is not growing, it's going to be difficult for you to really grow at a steady pace, because you do want the economy around you to grow. You might be growing while others are going down, but it's often better when everybody is growing, because then you don't have associated problems with different kind of growth rates across the economy, such as insecurity. If I'm doing well and you're not doing well, and you see me doing well, I mean, I shouldn't be happy because I'm insecure. At some point, you're going to be wondering why I'm doing well and you're not doing well. So that's why it's important for everybody's GDP to grow, every sector. But that's not the case at the moment. And the question now is, how do we get ourselves out of this mess? How? How do we get out of this GDP contraction? Not even the contraction, and not even the impending recession that is coming. Even the slow, tepid GDP growth rate that we're seeing, we got to get out of it somehow. How? And I've thought about this widely, and I've said, look, with some of my friends, maybe we have to do something a little bit differently. Do we maybe start to get the government to recalibrate its policies? So, for example, subsidy removal. Think about it. Let's use you and I. If your personal economy, if things were bad for you, God forbid, but let's assume things were bad for you and you're going through a tough time, your own GDP growth rate is contracted, slowing down, business is not working for you, what do? Is it around that period that you start to donate money? Do you dash money to relatives and friends and anybody? Do you throw parties? Do you give out freebies? Do you? You don't, right? Yeah, you don't. So let's park that aside. Now, if you're going through a tough time and you don't have any money, do you leave your 3 or 4 cars in your garage? Do you live in a very big house but you can't feed yourself and your kids? Do you leave all those your Gucci bags and your expensive shoes and clothes? Are you just going to leave them there? Who's going to wear them? You don't have money now. That's what's important to you. Maybe you have an investment somewhere, a house. Maybe you built somewhere some time ago. Are you just going to leave it there and don't feed yourself? You most likely would want to sell, isn't it? Maybe sell down some assets so that you can have some cash. And even if that is not enough, maybe you need to maybe your business is going through tough times and you don't have money, but you need money so that you can pay your salaries and you can keep investing in your business. Maybe you want to take out a loan, right? At least a loan that you can repay, a loan at the right price. Isn't that what you do? It's reasonable, isn't it? And then could you maybe call family and friends to come and help you? Maybe like support you these tough times, because maybe things are better for them and then you guys support each other, right? So that you can just get by. You can do that, isn't it? So now let's flip it to the government. So the first one we talked about, giving out grants and money to people and that's stimulus. So the government doesn't have money anymore, so they can't pay for subsidies. Because subsidies means you and I don't pay for something, but they pay, isn't it? Then, in giving out subsidies, in taking out subsidies, they also have to cut down expenditure, because that's what you would do. If you don't want to give out gifts and stuff, you also will cut down on your own budget. So that's what the government should do. Right. And then secondly, you probably will be looking to sell down some assets. So government should sell down some assets. People have said maybe you want to privatize things, a lot more stuff. Do we really need airports? Does government need to own airports? Can't they just privatize airports? What about all the rail lines? They've been building rails and spending billions and billions of dollars on rail. Why don't you just concession it off and give it to private investors to do it and put the right policies in place? What about roads? Must government own roads? All roads? They can own roads here, but you can privatize some roads as well. Look at Lekki Expressway. It's privatized, even though the government bought it back. But you can privatize roads. Oil assets. Of course, we can do something about it as well. What about your loans, your debt? You can borrow just so that you survive. So government can also borrow. But, like I said, at a very concessionary rate, which is why they go to guys like World Bank and IMF, because that's what you need to get by. So, just like you and I would do when you're going through tough times, that's what the government should do as well when you're going through tough times. Stop the freebies, cut your costs, look for cheap loans and funding, right? And then, of course, and most importantly, try as much as possible to be accountable. I always say that all the time. You have to be accountable to people. So you are going to be accountable to your employees and to your families So you expect government as well to be accountable to you and I, because they have basically cut spending, they have basically removed sports subsidy, they are selling assets, and then they are reinvesting in you and I, and then they are concessioning things. So that comes a lot of accountability. And these are the kind of things that we'll probably need to do to get us out of this cycle of low GDP growth rate and a recession. All right, I hope that I was able to explain that. You guys have a great weekend. And don't forget, there is Nairametrics Economic Summit tomorrow, 11 a.m. on Saturday. You don't want to miss this. I have amazing panelists on the show. And we're going to be talking about GDP, by the way. These are experts, and you're going to be hearing from them. Don't worry, it's not going to be all that wonky stuff. Straight to the point. You would love this. And of course, I'm going to be moderating that session. So trust me to ask all the questions that I know you want answers for. See you guys. Bye.